in this chair. They're like Possum is in Scout. They want to sit in my lap.
All right, there we are. There we are. Had to find which button to push to make sure everything comes on as it should. Welcome. We are live on the 14th day of May in the year of our Lord. We are live. I am your humble host, the most humble man on the planet. As we all know, it doesn't get any more humble than me, the overlord of the wasteland, the engineer of combat, the big boss with the hot sauce and the star of the show. I am Richard James Regal. Welcome. Glad to have you. We are live right now on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, and Kick. Can you believe all those places allow me to be on their platforms? I can't believe it. Certainly, they probably should have thought that thing out. But here we are. The YouTube channel is Wrestle Radio 860, WRESTLERADIO 860 on YouTube. That's sort of the hub of all things Regal. That's where it all goes down. If you want to know anything about what's going on past, present, or future, go to that YouTube channel and subscribe, give it a like, and look around. Peruse, if you will, some of the history that sits right there on that YouTube channel. Lots of shows on there, lots of radio interviews from the past with legendary guests like the one I have today. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. But there's lots of stuff up there for you to go and catch up on. And there's even some shows up there that I was either involved in or wrote or produced or was somehow involved in. So go check all that stuff out. That's where it all resides. We're also on Twitch, Regalwood6969. Facebook, of course, Ricky Regal. R-I-K-K-I, by the way. Rumble and Kick are Regalwood, respectively. Again, if you see this big bulldog, big in-shape guy right here, see him? He's such a good, look, he's a good boy. That's a good. If you see him, then you know you're in the right, by God, spot for all things Regal. And I welcome you. Welcome to the show. We are up and running. Got an outstanding guest today who's already got me rethinking inviting him on the show before we even got started. But welcome, welcome to him. We'll get to him in a few minutes. Of course, Bob Keller. He'll be on with me in a few minutes. The promoter of MLW and other things. Guy's got his hands on a little bit of everything, and I'm excited to talk to Bobby today. We hadn't caught up in a while, so I'll be glad to have a nice chat with him. Of course, Lace is standing by. She's in the control room. We'll have her up a little bit later for her ringside report. And, of course, we cannot have a program. We will not have a program were it not for the most ridiculous item of the week. And, boy, do I have one for you today. So you want to stick around to the end of the show to make sure you catch this week's good old most ridiculous item, because it is absolutely freaking ridiculous. But that's all coming up a little bit later in the show. A little bit of news before we get into the interview portion. I wanted to cover a couple of quick things before we, because I don't want to keep Bobby waiting too long. He's good enough to do this for me, and I'm really ready to get to Bob here in a minute. But before we do, a little bit of news. If you hadn't seen that Horseman documentary, you need to go out of your way to see it. It's over on A&E. I guess that streams on their streaming platforms. But if you haven't seen it and you're a fan of the history of this wrestling, professional wrestling, do yourself a favor and go and watch the Horseman documentary. It's 2 hours. It could have gone 4, and I would have still been just as enraptured with it as I was with the 2-hour version. Man, I tell you right now, that you don't remember and you don't realize. By the way, welcome to all the people in the chat room. I see Wanda in there. I see Kim. I see Cruiser Lewis just jumped in. Always good to have Cruiser in there dropping his pearls of wisdom every now and then. But thanks to everybody who's in the chat room. If you have any comments or questions for Bob Keller, Robert Keller here in the next when we go live with him, please drop them in the chats. Lace is monitoring and I'm trying to monitor as much as I can. I have all of them going here. So anyway, appreciate everybody who's joined us so far or who will join us in the future. But I will tell you that Horseman documentary, man, it is something else. And it's some interesting things that I found interesting. Of course, I like the history and what goes on and what went on in the past. And it was kind of funny when Ole left or decided to leave the first time, and JJ was kind of like, well, he wanted to leave, and I was okay with it. So it was just I don't know why that struck me as funny, but it was just kind of I guess because of what I know about or what I've since learned about Ole and all of that stuff. But the one thing that mainly stuck out, and they very briefly touched on when when Arn and Tully went to the WWE, just how gosh darn good they were, man. Holy cow! They showed a little clip of them in the ring with the Rockers, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, and it was just astonishing how just good, how in tune, how quick, how I don't go and watch that stuff, because if you care anything about how it's supposed to be done, those are the guys. Bob Keller is already in the chat. If you're easily offended, use caution with the questions. I don't have a filter, and he don't. So keep that in mind when we go live with again earlier before we even started. He's already on a roll, so that'll be fun. But go and watch that documentary on the Horsemen. It really was. It really is good. They did good on that. One question I have, and is interesting to me, has something happened to Arn? Is there something going on with Arn Anderson, because he's slowed way down in his speech pattern? I know he had the spinal cord, and they talk about that a little bit in the doc too. But his speech pattern has slowed way down, and I know he's getting a little older, like all of us. But he just seemed a little. I don't know. I mean, he just seemed kind of like everything was kind of like more measured, and when it's the juxtaposition of him when he was young, cutting those insane Arn Anderson promos to today is quite shocking. But God bless Arn Anderson and everything he's done. And I didn't know until the doc that he had actually wrestled under his real name a couple of times, and how they covered that when he actually came out as Arn, which I thought was kind of cool. But they tell you all that stuff in the documentary. So if you haven't seen it, go out of your way to check that out. And the other documentary, of course, out there right now is the Hogan thing over on Netflix. I watched the first. There's a 4-parter. I watched the first one of those. Good stuff. And, remember, when you're dealing with anything Hogan, you're going to get Hogan's version. And with all due respect, I mean, I have nothing but respect for the guy. But yeah, the timeline is a little weird. He grew up watching Dusty Rhodes, which I thought was kind of an odd thing to say. But anyway, they show some of the stuff when he did Rocky and all of that. So it's off to a good start as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, 4 parts. I've watched the first part, and good stuff there on that. Last thing I want to touch on before we get to Bob, and Bob will be involved in this next thing I'm about to talk about. It's going to be very vague, okay? But there's something brewing. Something brewing that if it comes off will be one of the biggest things to happen in this area in a long time. And it'll involve people from North Carolina and South Carolina. It'll involve a couple of local legends. I will do my part, and I said this to the people that we were talking to last night about it. I will do whatever it takes to make sure it's successful and to make sure it comes off. And I really hope this thing happens. I don't know what much more I can say about it, because it's literally in the infant stage right now. But there's something being planned that I think will be awesome were it to come to pass. So little teaser there for you, and there'll be more. Trust me, as this thing progresses and grows, there will be more said about it right here on this show, and probably in a lot of other places as well. So that's my little update for this for the start of the show here. Gonna switch into the interview portion now. What can I say about Robert Keller that probably hadn't already been said? He's got his hands in a little bit of everything. He promotes wrestling events. He's got a world-class setup He's karaoke guy, DJ. He does Comic-Con. This guy's got his hands in everything. So I'm happy to have him on and excited to talk to him today. But without all my blither, brother, let's bring him on in. Welcome to the program, Robert Keller. Bobby.
Where's he at? He owes me money. I heard what you were talking about a little bit, and I'm going to throw a little more tease out there.
Yeah.
And the original premise for what you were talking about was a collaboration between myself, Boomer Payne, and Brett Wolverton.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that's followed WrestleForce or Wrestle Roast, you would know that what that collaboration was.
Yeah, and I will tell you, it came out of nowhere yesterday. I don't want to say too much to give too much away, but when I was talking to somebody previous to all of this a couple of weeks ago, it was kind of just like something that I'd thrown out there. Hey, would you like to have a little, kind of a get together type thing? And then so I, hoped that would happen, but we didn't really talk about it that much anymore. Then yesterday I got a phone call, and I was like, wait, what? And they were like, would you be interested in being involved? And I was like, 1,000,000% I want to be involved in this. So I hope it comes together. I know you being involved, and I would just say Randy Wayne's involved, and so I think I'm excited about it, and I hope it happens. I really, really do.
I hope it does as well. Every one of these we've done have been a blast, but I will tell you, anybody that attends one of these will tell you there's. I just posted in your chat group a minute ago. I have no filter.
Yep.
These things. There's definitely no filter with these. Wherever the filter goes, it's missing completely. There's no filter. The language, the innuendos, it's all there.
Yeah, it will be an adults only event. There's no question about that. And again, I'm excited about it. But Bobby, let's go back before we go forward, okay? For anybody who may not know you, and I can't believe there's anybody, especially in this area, who don't, tell everybody who Bob Keller is and what your relationship to wrestling, professional wrestling, is, and how you became a part of it.
Man, we'll start off. I born and raised in Martinsburg, West Virginia. So anytime somebody does introduce me from West Virginia, I didn't just pick a random town in West Virginia. So I was born and raised in Martinsburg, West Virginia, which is off of the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. It's kind of in between Winchester, Virginia, and Hagerstown, Maryland. And Hagerstown is where I actually trained to wrestle. I was trained by Neil Superior at the Superior Pro Wrestling School in Hagerstown. For anybody that followed South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, he worked for South Atlantic. He was the last champion. He was the one that beat Helmut Hessler at the Hagerstown Fairgrounds back in, I want to say it was 91, maybe 92. And he had his school there, and I started training in 1994, in 93, started wrestling in 94. And the woman I was married to at the time was in a car accident, and she happened to be down here at the time. She had a drunk driver hit her head on, almost killed her. Wow. And I wound up moving down here, and one of the first promoters that I had met was a guy named Tony Early. He was running Southeastern Championship Wrestling here in Columbia, and he was running with a guy named Larry Lacey, who wrestled as the Desert Warrior. And then I met Alan Kenzie out of Orangeburg, and then I met Jim Lewis and Cowboy.
Yep.
They were running Southern Carolina Wrestling at the time. And then they opened up a building in Greer. I'm kind of skipping over a few things. But they opened up a building in Greer, and there was a separation, so to speak.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
And then when that separation happened, it was, there were some personal things going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people walked out of the locker room that night. And Jim turned to me and asked me if I'd plan on staying or walking. And their personal business wasn't my personal business. Yeah. I was there to wrestle, and that's what I was there to do. And I worked for Jim for a couple years there in Greer. Of course, Jay Eagle opened up American Pro Wrestling there. It was at the Shamrock in Boiling Springs.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the demise of Southern Carolina Wrestling, which was what Jim Lewis had, because a lot of guys saw TV and they got excited.
Yeah.
They thought, man, I'm going to be a star. I'm going to go do TV. And, you know yourself, it doesn't necessarily work out that way.
Yeah.
And I remember, and for everything bad everybody has, people say about Jay Eagle, I got really nothing bad I can say about Jay.
Yeah.
Jay gave me opportunities sometimes when other people wouldn't, but also too, I wasn't one of those that fell what I call the Eagle vortex. I didn't just go for a spot. If it didn't fit the Fabulous Playboy, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
If all he had was a spot for a baby face, the Fabulous Playboy has never been a baby face. The mega rocker Bob Keller all day long. The Fabulous Playboy, no. And there were people that didn't realize at that time, because you didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
But I would be in magazines and like the arena reports and stuff like that. You look at shows in Kaiser, West Virginia, or Clear Spring, Maryland, or Boonesboro, Maryland, McConnellsburg, Pennsylvania, or Pittsburgh, or areas like that, and you would see the rock and roll kid Bob Keller, the mega rocker Bob Keller, and then when you look at the ones from South Carolina, you see Fabulous Playboy Buddy Rose Jr. A lot of people had no clue that I was both people.
Yeah,
and that was, I love that. And one day, Danny Paris was sitting in a locker room, and he goes, "It's people like you that's ruining wrestling." And he kind of stopped me in my tracks. I'm like,
really?
What did I do now? Because as far as being an athlete, no, I was not what you would consider a great athlete. But I do have an understanding of the psychology of the wrestling business.
Sure. And
I feel that I'm a decent entertainer. I know where my spot is in a wrestling ring. Do I need to be a champion of a company? And absolutely not. Can I go out there and get a Barney chant for 10 minutes, take an arm drag, get beat up, and have everybody throwing stuff at me? I can do that stuff all day long.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of these guys, they don't understand where their spot is on the card, because they grow up looking in the mirror all the time going, I'm going to be the next champion, and they start believing their own press. But back to the what Dan had said to me.
Yeah.
He go, I'm sitting here looking at a magazine, and you got Bob Keller here and Fabulous Playboy here, and he goes, that's one and the same. And I said, yeah, but most people don't know me as Bob Keller here. Buck Forrester called me buddy all the way up to the day he died. Bill White called me buddy all the way up to the day he died.
Yeah.
And Dr. Feelgood walked around the corner and says, "Oh, man, I didn't know you were Bob Keller." I said, Your Honor, I rest my case. And I walked out of the room.
Yeah.
But I didn't go around, I believed, when I walked through the back doors of that building, at the time I worked, I had just left Pets Incorporated. I was a manager there. It was an animal adoption agency. I'd left there and had gone to work for a company called Mid-State Tire. Great people. But the tire salesman was left at the door. When I walked through that door with that gym bag,
yep,
the Fabulous Playboy walked in that building.
Right.
And when the Fabulous Playboy walked back out and got in his car, then Bob Keller, the married man with the kid and the regular job, was driving back to Columbia.
That's fascinating, Bobby, because I remember when I would start to get ready to change, to metamorph into the Ricky Regal character, it was kind of the same thing. You would be start getting ready and start putting yourself together and getting your bag packed and stuff, and you could just kind of feel that transition. And I think you're right, and a lot of people can't make those swaps, and they again, perfect analogy, they start believing their own press. So that's very, very smart that you said that.
I coined a phrase called road trip depression about 20 years ago. I was working for a company in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and we were doing a Friday and Saturday there. And then my dad owned a bar in Martinsburg, West Virginia called the Cadillac Club. And we were running shows there on those Sundays. So we were doing 3 shots those weekends. I was working sometimes 4 and 5 times a week, plus holding down a full-time job. And, I would get up on that Monday morning after driving all night, and having a great weekend and actually making some money when you could sell merch, and you still can if you do it right.
Right.
And I'd look over on the coffee table or my end table, and I'd see that, go, why do I got to go back and be Bob Keller today? Because I've had so much fun all weekend being the Mega Rocker. I've had so much fun all week being the Fabulous Playboy. But the Fabulous Playboy didn't have a light bill. He didn't have a car payment.
Right.
He didn't have a family to feed.
Right.
Bob Keller has got all that.
Right.
So and one of the agreements with my then wife was, if I did those road trips, that if I got hurt and I wasn't in the hospital, I still had to get up and go to work that Monday morning, because I could not. I was already taken away from my family time, but I could not take away from my family's expenses or adding to my family's expenses by not going to work.
Right.
And but my dad was a workhorse. He worked at DuPont. Then when he retired from DuPont, he opened up a bar. My dad was the one that actually what is now the modern day Keller Entertainment that owns the karaoke show and and all that. My dad started DJing in the Holiday Inn in Martinsburg, West Virginia in 1978. And then when I was in high school, I had teachers constantly asking me to get my dad to DJ like sock hops and things like that. And my dad stopped doing school dances because teachers didn't realize, just because he was my dad, he still had bills to pay. Sure. The records weren't free. The equipment wasn't free. And, I come home one day after a teacher had just been bugging the dog out of me. And I said, I was told to ask you, and she will accept whatever answer you give her. I said, she wants you to do a sock hop. He goes, nope, I won't do it, but I don't have anything that day. You take the equipment and you go do it.
Yeah.
And I DJ'd my first dance for $50, and I was hooked. The entertainment business will hook you.
Yeah.
And to this day, like when the pandemic hit, everything was shut down. And Zane from Pollywogs, who's been Zane and I've been friends for 20 years. He was actually a wrestling promoter back in 2002. He owned a company called Palmetto Pride Championship Wrestling, based here in Columbia. And that's how I met Zane. I rented him a ring. With Shocker, I rented somebody a ring. But when he opened up Pollywogs, I started DJing and karaokeing for him there. And when the pandemic hit, we both needed something to fill those voids, like everybody. And we had done a little podcast called Live at the Wog, and it was starting to take off. But then when the pandemic opened up, or everything opened up, we were both busy. We couldn't do that anymore. But all that stems from my dad starting in a bar in 1978, and me getting that entertainment bug.
Yeah, you're right. Once it gets you, it's hard to shake it. Before we move on to the next little segment here, Bob, a couple of people in the chat says hello to you. Hoss Haygood says hello. Cal Adair's in there.
Oh, buddy Hoss. I might see him one day in Abbeville or something.
Yeah, I'm hearing that rumor, by the way. Cal Adair's in there, and Robert Truesdale asks, is that your playpen in the background back there? That
is my granddaughter's playpen. Which you know this because you just seen my granddaughter before we went on the air. My granddaughter does exist.
She does. Yeah, I can attest. Let's see.
We work for some great people. I work for a company called Palmetto Shelving. I'm a project manager and installer, and I cover North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And we're blessed that Taylor can bring Mary Ann to school, to work. Instead of having to put her into like a little school or daycare or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
certainly. Well, just catching up on some of the chats there. Let's see who else is in there.
Robert Truesdale's just jealous. That's all.
Yeah, I felt that. Hoss Haygood says we're talking about the sock hops. Want to know if he was a DJ for the Grease movie, and Buddy Langley says hello too. So I got some fans in there saying hello.
Actually, Hoss is just making jokes, but I actually did DJ my own senior prom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there were a handful of people that were kind of making fun of me that night.
Yeah.
And I said, "That's great. You paid to be here. I'm getting paid to be here." And they kind of walked away with their head down, going, "Oh man, son of a gun!"
I never thought of it that way. Yeah, never thought of it that way. But what made you transition out of wrestler to promoter? How did that happen, and why?
Man, you know that back in 2012. I was still going through a pretty rough time. In 2010, my dad had passed away from colon cancer.
Yeah.
And I was going through a divorce, which that wasn't, the negative. I mean, I needed to get out of the divorce. That was bad.
Yeah.
But when my dad passed away, I was going through a rough time, and my heart wasn't in it anymore. And I kind of felt like I was taking up a spot that some of the young and up and coming talent could have had. But as far as being a promoter, I had the wrestling school, which I still have. But I needed a place to showcase these guys. And I was working at a bar called The Hangar in West Columbia. And the owner, we were sitting around having a meeting one night, and he said, "We need something that'll bring a crowd into this building that's not going to cost us a fortune, and try to get this place up and running." And he had just opened a bar. I was doing a karaoke show there 3 nights a week. And I suggested to him that we bring pro wrestling. And he goes, "I wouldn't even know where to begin to do that." And I said, "I can do it." I own a ring. I obviously own the sound system because it was right there in the bar. I said, "And I'll do it to where you don't have to have any upfront expense. I will be the one that is risk with the money here.
Yeah.
You give me the door, I'll give you the bar and the kitchen." And we did the first show there. It was very successful, and we continued to grow. And that was at a point where John Schuyler was just taking off, Cedric Alexander was just taking off, Caleb Conley, Zane Riley. We had a very strong roster. And I remember this. We had done a show with Hoss Haygood in Calhoun Falls, and Cedric Alexander and Vordell Walker had worked with each other, both great talents. And you know yourself, you can take 2 great talents and put them in the ring, and it just doesn't grab the fans' attention.
Yeah.
And that was one of those matches. They beat the ever-loving piss out of each other, and the fans were sitting on their hands. And I remember standing in my DJ booth, and Vordell and Cedric were in the ring. Same thing. They were doing a lot. They were working hard. It was hard hitting. But no, I was watching the crowd, and it was just like, this ain't grabbing me. So I went in the locker room, and I told Schuyler that night, I said, "I'm changing the direction. You're going to work with Cedric on the next 3 shows." And John's like, "Really?" Because he was teaming with Stephen Walters at the time, who was Cash Wheeler from FTR.
Yeah.
And he was getting ready to leave. He had just signed with NXT. And we didn't have anything with John. I said, "I'm going to have you work with Cedric." And they probably put on the strongest program I've ever booked at WrestleForce. They did the first match, went to, I want to say it was a 15 or 20-minute time limit. Then they come back and did a half-hour time limit. And we come back for that 3rd show and advertised it as a no time limit, no DQ. And that was the only match that we advertised. And we damn near sold the building out. It was standing room only.
Wow. And
we did have backup matches in case their match didn't go the full 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think they wound up going like 17 or 20 minutes. And the place was on their feet. And that, I attribute those shows at the Hangar kind of giving me that was starting the ball rolling for me. And like I said, we did, when they did the show in Calhoun Falls, I didn't own WrestleForce at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't take over WrestleForce until we moved it to the Hangar. That's when I took over WrestleForce. I was heavily involved They used my equipment. It was my permit, my license and all that, but I wasn't the decision maker.
Yeah.
The guy that was running it at the time didn't want anybody to know that he was running because he was one of the talents as well. And you know yourself, when you're running an event and you're a talent, you take a lot of scrutiny, and sometimes it's deserving. Other times it's not. There's some people out there that just want to nitpick every single thing you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt, there's certainly that. I remember when I was thinking of at one time way back early on that I wanted to kind of promote my own thing, and I remember Jim Mitchell, who I had on last week. He in one of the very few instances that he had a serious conversation with me, he was like, "Do you really want that headache of wrestlers calling you at 2:00 in the morning complaining about this, or why didn't you book me here, or what's my pay that?" And I just hearing him say it from that side of it kind of broke me from ever wanting to do that. Have you run into those kind of problems on your side as promoter?
I have, but my biggest one, I booked a name one time, and he calls me the morning of the show and says, "Hey, I'm in Indianapolis. I don't think I'm going to make it today." And I'm like, "You think you didn't know you were in Indianapolis last night?" I mean,
Yeah.
but luckily, I had spent some time on the road with the Barbarian, and Barb and his wife, they're family, and Barb has always been so good to me and taught me so much. And I called him that morning and I said, "Hey," I said, "can you be in Columbia?" And, I'm on my way, So we put Barb in that spot, and it worked out better. And, it was a blessing in disguise. And, the fans reacted more to that than the person we had in to begin with.
Yeah.
But as far as my biggest pet peeve is when you book somebody and their first question is, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
"Well, you're wrestling. What do you think I booked you for?"
Yeah.
There are some guys that I try to stay away from who has heat with who.
Yeah.
If you can't be professional, don't come in my locker room.
Yeah.
I do the booking for APW Chester, Action Packed Wrestling. I do the booking there. Joe Blumenfeld owns OSCW, Joe and Mary Sue, two of the nicest people you ever want to meet. I often tell them they're too nice to be wrestling promoters because Joe sometimes doesn't know how to say no. And, I have been since 2012 when I started helping him take over. I don't do the booking there, but I do help him structure the shows. I do help him come up with a lot of stuff. Now the beach shows, that's the one that once the ring is set up, don't go to Joe with any questions. You come to me, and I have a little meeting before every show. I tell people what they're doing. If they have a question, I'm not that hard to get in touch with. I'm not that hard to talk to. And if somebody wants to change something, if it makes sense and it works for the show, I don't have a problem with that. I don't micromanage people and say, "Okay, I want you to go here, I want you to do this, and then I want him to do this, and I want him to do that, and I want you to." I don't do that. Yeah. I go out and tell people what I want, and if they have a question, just ask. But the petty little questions of, "Well, I really wanted to work with this guy, or I wanted to work with that guy, or how come we can't do this for the tag team titles?" Man, stay at home.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
Right. No.
Too many guys out there that want to work and want to learn, and I've helped a lot of people, but I make them earn it. I don't give anybody opportunities; they earn opportunities because that's how I got into wrestling. Yeah. And I do the ring for Major League Wrestling in the Southeast. I did the two Charleston shows, the Atlanta show. We were just in Chattanooga last week, and I could just easily back the ring up and tell all the guys that are there trying to get a spot, "All right, you guys unload this," but I'm in there with them.
Yeah.
That's you lead. I've always felt you lead by example, and
Without a doubt.
At the end of the day, if these guys want to learn something, if I can show them something, or if they can show me something, I'm open. I'm all about efficiency. If there's something that I'm doing, they think it can be a little quicker, show it to me. because if we can get done 20 minutes faster, by all means, that's 20 minutes. You guys can go take a lunch or go do whatever. But with my regular job, sometimes I'm more of a problem solver than I am an installer, because you in the construction business, it all fits on paper.
Yeah. Right.
Doesn't necessarily fit when you're standing there. And wrestling's not much different.
Yeah. The logistics sometimes dictates how it comes together. Couple of real good questions here in the chat, Bob. I'm gonna turn it over to them. Missy Childers says, "What's your favorite memory from APW Chesney?"
She just wants me to say it was the time she hit me with a broom. Yeah, we
You knew exactly where that was going, huh?
I know exactly where it went. So I was tagging with the Ravishing Red Dog. Our team was called Absolutely Fabulous. Ab Fab for short. Neither one of us had abs. Or we did, it was just underneath of our bellies.
Yeah.
And I would go out there and say the most sexist stuff. You women belong in the kitchen. You belong sweeping the floors, belong doing the dishes. And my ex-wife at the time would laugh because I do laundry. I help clean. I do these things. And my girl, Carrie, I help with the dishes when I'm home, or I'll help with the laundry and everything. But the Fabulous Playboy didn't do none of that stuff.
Yeah.
And, we brought Missy up in the ring. We were working with her husband, Thunder.
Yeah.
And she come up in the ring. I said, here's how you use a broom. It's just not a mode of transportation. This is how you do this. Show me how you do it. And she whacked us both with the broom.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And there's so many guys that wouldn't do stuff like that, but why?
Yeah. Right.
At the end of the day, we're rolling around in a ring fighting for a belt, and we're not even wearing pants. What the hell?
Make it make sense, right?
Yeah.
Robert Truesdale says those shows at the hangar were I'm sorry, I dropped him here. Were a lot of fun, and a lot of well-known talent came through there. Josh Williams says, "Hey Bob, he loves you because you're always a tell it like it is and a great guy," which we all agree on. And then Missy again says, "No, she's being serious." For
everyone that says that, I can find you at least two that'll disagree.
They'll disagree, right? Same here. Missy says she appreciated everything you did, and for Chris Anderson, and he thought highly of you. Bob, let's. We've been going a minute here. I want to get into a couple of things we talked about a little bit in the pre-interview segment there. Before I get into some current thing, one thing I did want to ask you: how much of wrestling promotion today is knowledge versus marketing and social media?
Whew. Well, it depends on the promoter, I think. I'm going to take myself out of this for just a second, and I'm going to talk about Brian Hawks and Tracy Myers. Those guys have got it dialed in, and of course AML, the same people that do WrestleCade, the Thanksgiving weekend tradition here in the Carolinas. Those guys have got it dialed in. They found what works for them, and they get it out there and they get it done. I think Brian is underrated as a booker. I don't know how many people know that Brian Hawks is one of the guys behind and probably does most of the booking at AML. But they still go out and they work the town, and they're very knowledgeable about their area and what works. Now I'm going to put myself back in. There's a lot of rumors going around about the Polywogs events, which we have one this Sunday, bell time 5 o'clock. I'm not going to do any shameless self-plugs and tell you John Schuyler's going to be defending the OSCW Heavyweight Championship. But this Sunday against JAC. But anyhow, or Cam Jackson defending the WrestleForce Heavyweight Championship. But Polywogs owns those events.
Okay.
They're WrestleForce in name because of me and me working for Polywogs. As far as the ticket prices, as far as that's 1,000% Polywogs. Zane wanted to do something as a fan appreciation or customer appreciation for the customers, and he said, and Zane loves wrestling, not wrestling. He loves RASSLIN. That's wrestling.
Name of the show.
And that's what Zane likes.
Yep.
And the deal is, Zane pretty much he gets it at cost. I'm not ashamed to say that. Zane and I worked out a deal. I get a couple extra karaoke show dates out of me doing what I do, and the WrestleForce shows, I book them, I put them together. Zane, as far as the financials, that's 100% Pollywogs. Because there's been a few people that they get mad that well Bob's only doing $5 tickets to screw everybody else. Bob ain't doing the $5 tickets. Mm-hmm. Bob couldn't afford to do these shows for $5 tickets.
Right. Who could? Yeah.
But the business model, and not that I owe anybody an explanation because they don't pay my light bills, but I'll put it out here. The idea is to get customers to come out and do something at Pollywogs and see that we're more than just a neighborhood bar. It's a place to come and get something good to eat. It's a place to come out and have a good time and do karaoke. Yeah. It's a place to come out and check out local music. And, and now we've got volleyball there. We've got cornhole. We got pro wrestling. And it's an idea of if they come out to the wrestling and we tell them, hey, join me on Thursday nights for the karaoke show, starting at 9:00. Come on out and have a good time with us. You might have brought somebody in that didn't know we did karaoke. Now they're going to come out on Thursday night. They're going to have dinner. They're going to have karaoke. So that wrestling show brought them in for the wrestling, brought them back for the karaoke. Maybe they came and had crab legs on Thursday night, or maybe they came out and checked one of the bands that we have on a Friday or Saturday night. That's the business model behind it. So, it's a lot of in-house and internet, social media advertising for Pollywogs, as opposed to AML, who still goes out and they beat the streets. And Pollywogs has posters that they put out and stuff too. It's just they don't go as far out as if I was running St. Matthews and I would run down to Orangeburg or I would run down to Bowman and come back up to West Columbia with my posters. Pollywog stays within like a 5 or 6 mile radius.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how could it not? I mean, come on.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I do ramble sometimes.
No, that's great. I got a little sidetrack. I was reading. I got all these chat rooms open here. I was reading some of the chats while you were telling me that. And Black Cat Johnson says, "What about the country whipping you got?" Jimmy Kindred says he wants to say hello. And
all right, so hold on, back up. I'll talk about the Black Cat Johnson and Perry James beating me like I owed them money. And it's unfortunate that this thing kind of fell apart because where it was headed and where it ended are two different streets. Okay. I was going to step in and tag with Luke Fury and Christopher Prince against Deion Johnson, Trent James, and Perry James. Mm-hmm. And the setup to that, and they took me out. And again, I'm one of those people, if I'm not willing to do it, I'm not going to get anybody else to do it. I told Perry, I said, take your belt off and hit me. Mm-hmm. And I have a rule when you hit me with a belt. If you don't lay it in, I'm going to cut you off and I'm going to beat you like I want you to beat me.
Fair enough.
And, they laid it in. Yeah. They did what they were told to do. Yeah. And unfortunately, Trent got injured, and then Perry had to step away too. So it didn't quite go the way we wanted it to go, but we still got the story across. We got the Luke Fury and Chris Prince. I put Luke with Chris. Chris is one of Lodi's students, and just from what I've seen out of him in the last 2 years, he has gained so much knowledge, and he's helping doing some of the training over at Lodi's. And these students are they're picking up, and Chris is getting out there. He's getting it done. And I wanted Luke to pick up some of that from Chris. That's why I put them together as a tag team, and it's worked so far. Luke is a young kid. He's got a future ahead of him. If he can stay in the lane and not get bad advice from bad people, he'll do great.
Yeah. Well, that's the struggle a lot of folks are find themselves dealing with. Certainly, depending on where they go and who they talk to.
One of the things I've noticed over the years is people will tell you they want you to do good.
Yeah.
They just don't tell you the other parts where they don't want you to do better than them.
Right.
So once you start doing better than them, they start kind of misdirecting you, or they start giving you bad advice.
Yep.
And because they've held themselves back, they hold you back too.
Absolutely. One last question out of the chat, Bob, before we move on to wrap this up. We've been going almost an hour, and it seems like we've been going 10 minutes. But the guy in here, bottom line, wants to know, what is your strategy to help someone learn how to break in? Either, I guess, I don't know if he's talking about wrestler or promoter, but what would be a little bit of advice for somebody coming in?
Go to school and become a lawyer.
Yes, I second that.
Yeah, you got to understand, especially now, and I see a lot of people opening up wrestling schools.
Yep.
And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. There's so many people. Everybody will tell you that they want to do it.
Yep.
They'll tell you they'll do anything. The only thing they won't do is show up, train, or
help promote,
or pay.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it for free. The only reason my school has survived, as long as it's survived, is because I own the building.
Yep.
I don't have to pay rent, and I don't have to keep an influx of students. I'm a little choosy about how many I take at a time, because I don't want. Not everybody learns at the same speed, and I don't want one person holding 10 people back. And that's not knocking anybody. It's just I want to be able to spend the time with them. And Skylar still comes out and works out with guys. And one of the things I've always done with my school, and it's a flat rate. Once you've paid, as long as I've got a building and a ring and we're working out, you can come work out. I don't charge a ring maintenance fee or anything like that. If guys get in a van and we're going to the shows, the deal is you help set up and break down. I pay for the gas and I do what I can to get you on the show. All these other people, there are people out there that say that I try to take advantage of these kids, and Bob just uses them to set up the ring. I do what I can to get people on events and introduce them to people. We used to take 2 trips to West Virginia, Memorial Day and Labor Day, and the promoter gives me 4 or 5 spots for those shows, and people used to trip over themselves. Come on, I got to get in the van. I got to get in the van, because those shows were so much fun. And these kids today, I don't know why they got in the wrestling business.
Yeah.
Because they're in such a hurry to get to the building, get their match, get done, and drive back home.
Yep.
Man, they're when I first got in this business, I was told, if you don't like to travel, this business is not for you.
Yep. And
sometimes the travel's more fun than the show.
Oh, 100%.
And Brett, God bless him. There were times that Brett didn't have anything. He got in the van. And I'll tell you a funny story. We were down in Georgia, and they had this announcer, and I could just tell that he was not going to be good. And I was setting up my equipment, and I told the promoter, I said, hey, I got my announcer with me. And he goes, well, I got my buddy, and, I already promised him he could be on the show. And all right, man, no problem. So as I'm setting up, I told Brett, I said, I want you to go out and do the sound check for me. And Brett's like, what? I said, just go do the sound check for me. I had something in mind.
Sure.
And it wasn't dirty pool, but I wanted the promoter to see what he was missing out on.
Yeah.
And Brett went out and did the sound check. The promoter come up 5 minutes later and goes, hey, does your guy got his stuff with him? I'm just going to have my guy manage.
Yeah.
And Brett come up, and it dawned on him as soon as he goes, that was a sneaky way to get me a spot. I was like, it wasn't necessarily that. I wanted the guy to see what he was missing.
Right.
And it's like, when we were at MLW the other day, we got the ring set up. I was running the ropes with one of the guys. I ran a little crisscross with one of the guys, and when we stopped, he was kind of breathing heavy, and I wasn't. And it's not because I was in better shape. I said, you got to learn to pace yourself.
Yeah.
You're trying too hard, and you forgot to breathe.
Yeah.
It's not that I was in a much better shape. Now, I am in better shape than I was a year ago, but at the same time, you got to remember to breathe. But I'll do that with guys sometimes, not because I'm trying to get me a spot or get me noticed. I want them to take a look at the other guy and go, "Oh man, look at this kid."
Yeah. Which is the right thing to do. And you brought up Brett. For those who may not know, he's talking about Brett Wolverton. Of course, we recently lost Brett, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Not to go too greatly deep into the end there, but I wanted to. How did you guys meet and hook up? And were you immediately friends, or how did that relationship?
All right, so let's start off. We never hooked up.
No,
okay, I'm just gonna go ahead.
My apologies. That was the wrong choice of words. I apologize.
So I met Brett. I met Brett at a couple shows, and then the previous owner of WrestleForce had brought him in. And Brett and I, as far as working together from an announcer, producer, or sound guy, we clicked instantly. And there's Jim Valley, who works for the Observer. Jim Valley is another one that we just clicked instantly as far as a person that he was doing interviews at Fan Fest, and I was running the sound, and we were, without telling each other what we needed to do, we could cue each other, and Brett and I had that magic. And I can work with just about anybody. Sometimes, though, I have to communicate differently with them.
Yeah.
Brett and I traveled together for the better part of 17 years, and we worked together for the better part of 17 years. When I took over the ring rentals at RWA up in High Point, North Carolina, I told the promoter there, I was like, "Hey, you need to get Brett in here as an announcer." He goes, "Hey, well, Brett won't work for me." I said, "I'll fix that." I called Brett and I said, "Hey, I'm doing the ring and sound at RWA. I got you a spot." And, it wasn't because I don't like other people. It's because I know Brett and I knew each other so well. And Brett knew if I was stressed to let me handle my part, that I wasn't, him and I didn't need to go over anything.
Yeah.
Brett and I talked more during the week on the phone than we did on show day sitting beside each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's how good Brett and I work together. And since his passing, it's been a kick in the gut.
Yeah.
There's not been a day I haven't thought about picking up the phone to call him and tell him about things going on. As a matter of fact, the night that he had passed away, I had just gotten a call from MLW about about the ring rental for the Southeast. And I got a little training chat group, and I had so much going on that day. I was driving back from North Carolina from work, and I'd put it in the chat group, "Hey guys, got some big things coming up, and I hope that we can get everybody on board here." I didn't pay attention to who commented on it, who liked it, or anything. I got home that night. Carrie and I were talking about things, and Carrie doesn't get enough credit for putting up with my shit. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, Carrie is the true backbone, because I put my hands in so much, and there's been a couple times that she'll look at the calendar and go, "You're doing this one on your own. You're doing this one on your own." And before Taylor had gotten pregnant and had my granddaughter, Taylor would go on the road, and it's kind of a family thing. Yeah. And it was great. And I love traveling with Carrie. And we have so much fun. And she goes to the MLW shows with us, and she gets in there and works just like the guys. Yeah. I got another daughter. She's fiance of Christopher Prince. And when she was wrestling, I say daughter, she's my adopted daughter. She would grab hold of a ring post and carry it. And somebody went to stop her to show. She goes, "I'm Bob Keller's daughter. Get away from me." And
right.
But
you were talking about
going back to Brett.
Yeah, you were talking about
going back to Brett.
The comment on
the number of
post.
people, the number of people that wanted Brett's spot um, there were. If Michael Buffer would have come up and said, "Hey, I want to work for WrestleForce," man, I'm sorry until Brett quits. Ain't happening.
Yeah.
And
well, you had said that the night you had sent out the text about the big things coming, and then you weren't.
Yeah. I apologize. Yeah,
no,
and it was the next morning. I woke up. There was a message from Brett's mom, and I had talked to Brett on the phone that Sunday night. He had just done his laundry. And he said, "Man, I got to carry this laundry up the steps." And Carrie and I are getting ready to build a new house. And I said, "Brett, why don't you see if the TV station here in Columbia, if you can transfer there, I can rent you the house we're in now cheaper than what you're paying in rent. And you got the whole house, you got the man cave, you got and when I told him what I could rent it to him for, he was like, well, hell, I could even still drive to Greenville." Yeah. And then the next day or 2 days later, his mom told me what happened. And I was thinking he fell going up the steps or he fell going down the steps, or at no point did him passing away cross my mind.
Yeah.
And, Brett joked about death all the time. We were standing, we do a Rumble party every year. And, we were standing on my back deck. We were fixing brunch. And Brett walked out on my back deck, and a joke was made about death. And Brett goes, "Well, I got to go before everybody else because I need all the pallbearers." And I jokingly said, "My back hurts that day." And I didn't know it was going to be 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And it was, it was, and it is still such a kick in the gut. And when we were coming up on the 20th anniversary for OSCW, and Brett had been looking forward to this for so long. We'd all been looking forward to it. We busted our ass for 20 years to get to this point. And then I got to call Joe and Mary Sue that morning and tell them Brett's no longer with us.
Wow.
And we were going to abandon ship with me managing Zuka King, and I was going to announce. And Carrie and I were at dinner, and I happened to be chatting with Jonathan Feltner about something else. And Carrie goes, and Carrie and I were shooting ideas, and she goes, "Well, we could always ask Jonathan." And I thought, well, I'm an idiot that I didn't think about that to begin with, because Jonathan was the only person that Brett broke into the wrestling business. And, at this point we had a number of options, but we wanted options to make sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to just bring somebody in that, for one, didn't have a tie to Brett or didn't have a tie to OSCW.
Yeah.
So we had ultimately 3 options: Eddie Rich, because he was the original ring announcer for OSCW.
Yep. Great ER.
Me, or Jonathan Feltner. And at that point, I said, okay, take me out of the mix, and if Jonathan will do it, let's get Jonathan to do it. If Jonathan won't do it, I'll contact Eddie. If Eddie won't do it, then I'll be back in the mix. But Skyler, we had, for a year, we had done an angle with Zuka King and Skyler, because, of course, Skyler being with TNA. Every time we went out, we talked about how we got rid of John Skyler and got him out of OSCW.
Yeah.
And Zuka King had taken over. He is the true king of OSCW. John Skyler is no more. You can chant his name all you want. He's not coming back. And then, of course, when they announced the 20th anniversary, it's John Skyler versus Zuka King inside the cage with me on the outside. Yeah. And, and Skyler, a lot of the, Skyler and I bounce so many ideas off of each other.
Yeah.
And we might have an idea. We go, man, this is going to be pretty good. And then we'll talk to the other one, and we point it up a little bit, and it's like, this went from a good idea to pretty damn good.
Yeah.
This is pretty hot. And when Jonathan said that he would be on board, also talked to Julian Strauss at RWA, and Jonathan's working up there now. And, working with Jonathan is, it's not working with Brett. There will never be another Brett. But right. Jonathan is very close. I love Jonathan. I love working with Jonathan. And, it's unfortunate that something like this had to happen for me to be able to work with Jonathan. But, it did, and Jonathan has come on board, and we're trying to pick up the pieces the best we know how.
Yeah. Well, I know it's tough, and it always is a change of life for people who remain. So I get it, and I know y'all are really good friends, and I really just I was sending you a lot of positive vibes that way. When something like that happens, I don't like to jump right on the phone and try to because I know it's a lot going on at the time, but certainly was thinking about you guys down there. And,
That day, and because I felt so bad for Brett's mom, and because she had just lost her husband, and Brett's brother had a heart attack a couple years ago, and now this. It's like, man, and I know from watching my aunt and uncle have buried 2 kids, my grandmother buried 2 kids and 4 grandkids. My dad's mom, of course, she outlived my dad, and she changed, and I seen that change, and it takes a very strong person to have to bury a kid or a grandchild or something like that. It's definitely something that I would never want to do, and I buried 2 of my best friends in the last 10 years. Wally, who hosted the original roast of Bob Keller. When we came up with the premise of Wrestle Roast, it was going to be all wrestlers, and then they were like, well, who's going to host the first roast? And I was like, the only other person that's not a wrestler that knows me better than anybody is going to be Wally. And so Wally was on board, and he fit right in with it. And then a couple years later, Wally was killed in a trucking accident. It takes a toll on you. But that day, Linda was trying to keep everything off of the internet the best she could. And I'm messaging people, hey, look, she's still telling family, can you not post this? And people, for whatever reason on the internet, everybody thinks they got to be Walter Cronkite all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
They got to be the one that breaks the story.
Right.
I get it. It's social media, but everybody wants to. They got to be the first.
Yeah.
Go do something with your life. If I died tomorrow, heaven forbid, because I got so much stuff I got to get done.
Same.
But if I died tomorrow, I would leave that up to Carrie or Taylor to decide which one of them needs to post that on social media first. But I've got family in West Virginia. I got family in Maryland. I've got family in Virginia. So I would like for them to be able to get a hold of them and not see it on the internet first. And sure as hell not see it from a stranger that they've never met.
Yeah. Now, it is the one of the drawbacks of social media is that everybody, like you said, wants to be the one who breaks the news. I don't know what that is. Is that some kind of
and half the time they don't even get the full story. They don't even, and that's it. That's when you see something about, well, this person did this or this person did that, and I hear things about myself sometimes I wasn't even in the building.
Yeah, I did like that when they did pass that you kind of shut it down immediately. It was like, don't ask any questions. When it comes out, it comes out, and that's the last I'm gonna say on it. And it was the last you said on it. And I always thought that's the way to handle that. Just cut it off before it gets going.
The number of people that messaged me that day with insensitive messages, like it wasn't, hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your friend. Hey, I'm sorry to hear about Brett. I'm sorry this happened. The number of times I opened my phone in the words of what happened.
Yeah. Yep.
It doesn't matter what happened.
Right.
It could have been a car wreck, cardiac arrest, fell down the steps, fell in the toilet. Didn't matter. My friend's still not here.
Right. That's right.
It has what happened has no bearing.
Right.
It's not like we got a magic ball. We can go back and go, okay, we can fix it.
Yeah. Right.
Just know that Brett, a lot of people lost a good friend, and a mother lost a son.
Yep.
A brother lost a brother. It doesn't matter how it happened.
Yeah.
And the number of people, there was one guy in Georgia. He comes to some wrestling shows, and he's like, man, he was my friend. And look, I'll tell you the truth about Brett. Brett hated confrontation. Brett was everybody's friend, but if he really didn't like somebody, the minute he'd walk away, he goes, that person can go F right off.
Yeah.
To where I'm different.
Yeah.
If they walk up to me and I don't like them, I'll just tell them to F off.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend to like somebody I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing that's kind of going the way of the dodo is just being frank and blunt with people, and because nobody can clearly take it anymore.
And here I'll shock a lot of people. I don't dislike Thomas Simpson. I know there's a rumor that I don't like Thomas. Thomas, I do have respect for some of his knowledge of wrestling.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
As far as somebody, Thomas and I'll probably never sit down and have dinner together.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Thomas is a victim sometimes of not what is said, but is who's saying it. Mm-hmm. Thomas could tell you that the sun's shining, and there's some people out there who would look for a cloud just so they could say, no, there's a cloud.
Yeah. Right.
I remember a while back, and what Thomas said was 100% accurate. There were some people that had taken a picture together in the ring, and then they wrestled against each other that night on the show. Yeah. They're trying to tell fans that they hate each other while they're posting pictures up going, I'm wrestling with my friends.
Yeah.
And Thomas had made the comment, that's what's wrong with wrestling. And people were ganging up on Thomas saying, well, you're what's wrong with wrestling. Or you're not. Yeah. If Ricky Morton would have said what Thomas said,
yep,
nobody would have
better than I
contradicted what he said.
Right.
Or nobody would have come after him.
Yep.
But because it was Thomas, and I'm not saying that he hasn't created some of that controversy for himself.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I've created controversy for myself.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm Bob Keller. Have we met? Yes. I know the controversy I've created for myself sometimes.
Yep.
There's controversy that's been created that I had nothing to do with, and people would rather listen to the back end of the horse,
yep,
rather than go to the source.
Sure.
And I'm not a hard person to get a hold of. Shoot, if somebody thinks I said or did something, shoot me a message. If I said it or I did it, I'll tell you I did it.
Right.
I'm 53 years old. What the hell I got to hide behind?
Right.
And there's sometimes people say stuff. I go, why are you doing that? The truth is so much more interesting than the crap you made up.
You're right.
Yeah.
No, it is.
But I know what it's like to be the victim of who said it rather than what was said.
Yeah.
And that I've seen that happen. And again, though, there's sometimes that he's kind of created that for himself.
Certainly, and he'll even admit to that. He knows. He certainly knows that. We're going to start to wind this thing down, Bob. I thank you so much for doing this. We've been going over an hour, man.
I got 3 more hours. Come on, man.
Well, I got nothing to do, but I do.
I got a karaoke show tonight, each and every Thursday night at Pollywogs, starting at 9. Come on out and have a good time with us every time at Pollywogs.
Before I let you go and do your plugs, I did want to ask you one big thing.
Yes.
What do you think, or who do you think will be the next big thing to come out of the Carolinas? Because you're out there, you see the talent, you see what's happening. Who do you see in the future of being the next thing out of the Carolinas?
Man, that's a loaded question.
Absolutely, it is.
Because with that being said, you got to look at what they're doing. Are they trying to break out? Or are they just driving 40 miles? Or are they getting complacent, working with the same people at the same places?
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of Cam Jackson's. Cam Jackson is a great entertainer. If Cam, I think, got in front of some eyes, I think he could move up a ladder a little bit. JAC, I've watched him from the beginning, training at AML and where he's at now. He's done a tour of Japan. He's done very well for himself. Don Furio, I think a lot of Don. He's got a good look to him. He's got a great attitude. He's been doing some extra work. He was on a pay-per-view. He was one of the mask guys for Seth Rollins a couple months ago at WWE. there's so many guys out there, and I know somebody's going to go, "Oh, why didn't you mention me?" And if you got to remind me to do that, then might be why.
Might be why.
If you got to tell me how good you are, you're probably not that good. It's when everybody else tells me how good you are that I know you're good.
Then you start paying attention, certainly. Well, Bob,
like I said, Don Furio, Cam Jackson, JAC, they're some standouts. I like the Kazana boys, AJ and KC Kazana. They're not necessarily Carolina guys. They work Carolinas a lot. They work for the NWA, but they're Joe Kazana's kids out of Tennessee. They're good. They're good guys. Carolina wrestling right now is pretty hot. If more people would learn to work together, everybody could do better.
Yeah.
I started something a couple years ago where, especially with the internet, you can't hide that Chris Prince and Luke Fury are the APW Tag Team Champions. Jakari Ball, my God, I don't know why I didn't think of him. He worked as Quan McNair. Looks like $1 million, works like $1 million. He's ID'd by WWE. He's another one. Chase Emery, gosh, is another one.
Yeah.
Got $1 million look, and he's traveling. He's doing very well.
Yeah.
So, and those are some Carolina guys.
That's awesome. Before I get you out of here, how's Skyler doing? I haven't seen him in a while.
Man, Skyler is doing great. Working for TNA. He's one of the great hands.
Awesome.
No longer good. He's great.
Yeah, he is. Great.
Him and Jason Hodge, great tag team. They're doing well. That was somebody. If John Skyler would have been a foot taller, we'd be talking about how he left for WWE 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I thought a lot of Johnny. He would always come to my events that he would work on in the Christmas shows, and was like you said, just an all around good hand. Would do whatever was asked of him, and never had anything but positive things to say, and was always just there for everything. And by the way, speaking of that, I wanted to thank you, and I know I have in the past, but I wanted to publicly say thank you so much for being a part of that very last one we did. I didn't realize till recently that thing was 10 years ago. But when you brought the cage in, and I think that was the first time and only time that a cage has ever been brought to Lawrence for that event or for any event, and of course you being instrumental in all that. So give you your flowers. Thank you for being a part of that, and thank you for helping me with it, because it did mean a lot to me, and it always will.
It's crazy. I get to be part of a lot of firsts. I know you're trying to get out here, but I get to be part of a lot of firsts. It was the first and only one to do a cage in Lawrence.
Yep.
Jackson Drake and Jackson Drake and Javon Evans had their very first match in my ring.
Yep.
I feel privileged that I get to be part of so many firsts. FTR, their first match with the Rock and Roll Express was in my ring. Rock and Roll Express against the Good Brothers was in my ring. I'm blessed with that. So,
well,
they're out there pressure washing my building here.
I heard water. I thought I had you sprung a leak over there. I don't know what you had going on over there.
They're shooting through the door, so I gotta go out here and get on here in a minute.
Well, look,
I appreciate you having me on.
No, thank you, Bobby. I want to do it again because, like I said, we've been going an hour and 20 minutes, and it didn't feel like we've gotten anything. I had a whole litany of questions here, but you were the easiest interview I've ever had. Before I get you out of here,
I tell you what, give me one last question. Come on, give me one last. Make it good one.
I tell you what, before we do, but before I even do that, plug your stuff. What you got coming up? What you got going on? Tell everybody how to get a hold of Bobby Keller and how they can avail themselves of your services. Yep.
On Facebook under Robert Keller. I do X. It's under Bob Keller, Uncle Bobby Ferguson. We'll tell that story at another time. But this Sunday, live at Pollywogs, Live Pro Wrestling returns to Pollywogs this Sunday, bell time at 5 o'clock. The Moonshiners versus VSP for the WrestleForce Tag Team Championship. The Heart Killers versus Savage Kincaid and myself. I'm going to step back into the ring and kind of straighten out the Heart Killers a little bit. Tommy Django and Chris Vallo. Skyler versus JAC with Clara for the OSCW Heavyweight Championship. Cam Jackson versus Johnny Baker for the WrestleForce Championship. Don Furio versus Pretty Rich Wise. Christopher Prince versus Joey Rhymer for the RWA Cruiserweight Championship. Then the hired gun Chris Stallings versus returning Roughhouse Matthews. That's this Sunday. Tickets are only $5 at Pollywogs.
You can't beat that. I mean, that's a bargain for that amount of entertainment. Hey, man, thank you again, Bobby. I appreciate you so much. It means the world to me that you did this, and I do want to do it again. Hey, and keep me up to date on that secret squirrel thing we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. I'll do it. One last question. Give it to me. Give me a good one.
Hey, let me see.
Come on.
Let me
gotta make it a good one.
All right, I'm gonna try. Let me see. How about this? When people talk about Carolina wrestling 20 years from now, what do you hope that they say about your contribution to it?
Oh man, what do I hope they say about that? I hope that they say that I was instrumental in helping make it better than what it was when we found it, and that I was instrumental in helping so many people achieve their goals and their dreams.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Appreciate all that you do. You do a lot. And I started this thing by saying you got your hands in everything, but the good thing about that is that everything you do is quality. I mean, I just stumbled into one of your events in Columbia a while back. I didn't even know it was you, and I was like blown away by just the.
Oh, you're talking about the Anime Con or the Comic Con?
Yep.
Yeah, yep. I was playing music. My friends at Kayfabe Cardboard, the people that do my merchandise, my shirts, and Keller guys shirts, the Wrestle Force shirts, Wrestle Force hats, koozies, all that. Yep. That all comes from Kayfabe Cardboard. One of the guys that runs that Anime Con, I worked out a deal with him a while back. I said, man, have you ever had anybody playing music during this and doing announcements? And I did the first year, and he come up to me afterwards. He goes, man, we need to do this every year.
Yeah.
So
no, it was great. And like I said, I knew it was happening because I'm not from that area. I found it online and went down there, and we passed each other going out the door, and I was like, Keller.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
I threw some music on so I could go stretch my legs and wash my hands. And I went out to the food truck, but they had already sold out everything I wanted.
Well, it was cool. It was cool to see you, and it's always good to talk to you.
Bob
Keller,
pleasure.
Thank you so much again, my friend. I do appreciate it. We will do this again in the future. And like I said, keep me up to date on the other thing, and we will make that happen.
We'll do it.
Hopefully soon. All right, that's Bob Keller, everybody. What a great time having Bobby on. I really appreciate him doing that, and really fun talking to him and catching up with him. Thanks for everybody who was in the chat and participated with some questions. Sorry I didn't get to all of them, but we again, we've gone an hour and 21 minutes now, an hour and 22 minutes now just with Bob, and there was so much more to cover. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get to our most ridiculous item of the week. That's coming up next. We're going to take a quick break so I can fill up my cup and other things of that nature. We'll come back here in just a minute and wrap this thing up right here on Regalwood Rasslin. Stand by. All right, back here on Regalwood Rasslin. Gonna wrap this thing up. Had a couple of quick hit and miss things here just before we get to our most ridiculous item, which is always a fan favorite here on the program. Remember, we are live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, and Kick. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, and Kick. I try to monitor all the chats as we go along, but the main one, if you really want to have your comments seen, is the YouTube chat there on the live stream over on YouTube. That is Wrestle Radio 860, WRESTLERADIO 860 on YouTube. Of course, Twitch, Regalwood 6969, Facebook, Ricky Regalwood, RIKKI, Rumble and Kick are Regalwood. Again, look for this guy right here, the big bulldog with his championship title belt and all of that stuff. That's if you found him, you found the right place. All right, the great Bob Keller. I appreciate him for coming on today. Again, so much more we could have talked about, but again, one of the easiest interviews I ever did because I just had to sit here and listen, and I always appreciate that. Though I don't have to work as hard. So I did an interview some years ago with a lady wrestler who had just gone up to the WWE. And that interview was so bad, I was physically exhausted after I was done with it. And it sits right there on that YouTube channel. If you remember Aloisa, she was this tall giant female they brought in. I think she lasted in bed for like a week, if that. Had her on the program, and it was taxing. It was so bad that I replayed it sometime later for the Halloween episode as the most horrifying interview I've ever conducted. Just had to pull it out of her. It was a nightmare, but I digress. Appreciate Bobby doing that. Appreciate everybody who joined me today. Real quick, we're not going to get the lace today because we ran a little longer than we expected. So she wanted me to make sure that we let you know that 3 Count is Saturday night and WrestleForce is Sunday. Unfortunately, Lace didn't tell me where those events are, so I guess you can go out there and find them for yourself. The WrestleForce is again Sunday. I guess sometime Sunday during the day. You figure out when and where, and that's all I can give you because that's all I got. 3 Count is Saturday night and WrestleForce is Sunday. Tell me when or where, Lace, and I'll try to get that in there. She's in the production room frantically typing away right now, I guess, to send me the information. But so I understand that there's going to be another one of those shows that we talked about previously over in Greenwood. I guess the less said about that, the better. That came to me from Cruiser. I think they got a let me see. That CMW, I guess, is June 20th. If you want to go out there and be a part of that chicanery, then help yourself. And also, I have been talking to some local guys. I put a post up on that the other day on the Inside Wrestling Radio page on Facebook there. But I have been talking to a couple of local guys who I'm going to try to get on here post-haste. One of those being Hoss Haygood, who was in the chat room today. Hoss, I appreciate you for joining. He is going to run a show in Abbeville, and it looks like he's locked his date in for August the 2nd. August the 2nd is the show coming up from Hoss Haygood, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be, I think that's going to be a, let's see if it's a charity event or what it is. Benefit for the Pete Smith Recreation Sports Complex. They're doing a benefit for that. So we're going to have Hoss on. He's going to tell us all about his card and everything that's going on with that. But that, again, according to Hoss Haygood, that event has been locked for August 2nd in the Abbeville Civic Center. I've wrestled in that building. That holds some memories in that building for sure. And so when Hoss gets that thing up and going, we'll have him on and we'll discuss the big card coming up for that. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Let's get to the most ridiculous item of the week. This comes to us from You Are Not Getting Booked on Facebook. The You Are Not Getting Booked page over on Facebook has posted this. I don't know who these people are. Don't know where their show is held. There's not a lot of info on here, but apparently, according to You Are Not Getting Booked, again, the Facebook page, You Are Not Getting Booked, these guys are going to open up a training center. So let's give a look and see just exactly what we're going to have when we get over to be trained by these two legendary individuals. Let's see if I can get this up out of the way here. Let's drop that. Uh-oh. Okay, we got a problem. Always got a problem. Sorry, give me just a second here. I got to add something in. That's on me. That's on me, but it won't take me but a second. I'm beginning to be a wizard at how to screw up and fix it really quickly. So, all right, let me get myself out of the way. Check this out. From You're Not Getting Booked, I give you this.
You gotta get behind Mr. USA. Oh, goodness. I don't think there's any coming back from that one, folks. 1, 2. Oh, 2 and 3/4. Mr. USA powers out of that. The big Russian, he's wondering how he's going to put this guy away. I don't think he can. Come on, folks, let's get behind Mr. USA. Get loud and get proud, ladies and gentlemen, the United States of America. Goes for the cover.
I just, what are we doing? What? I get it. Wrestling is for everyone. We all know wrestling is for everyone. We got to be inclusive. We got to open our arms and bring everyone in. But here we have Mass Face Moron number 1 versus Mass Face Moron number 2. The Mr. America versus the Russian. The classic battle of ages gone by. And this is what they give us. Now, a couple of things. You know that I don't ever watch the nonsense in the ring because, quite frankly, I can't stand this kind of ignorance. Always watch your fans. What do I always say? Always watch your fans. Look at these people over here. Wait, let me get myself out of the way. Look at these people over here. See these people? I can never. See these people right here? See these folks? These people. They're just sitting. It looks to me, honest to God, it looks like they're sitting there trying to have their dinner. What hell restaurant did you walk into to have a nice lunch and this is what you have to put up with? It's maddening. Watch it again. Watch your fans. By the way, watch these people. They're doing anything else but having to pay attention to this nonsense in the ring. Watch it again. Remember, watch your fans.
You gotta get behind Mr. USA.
I don't even know what this is. It's I guess it was a power driver. Goes for the pin.
1, 2.
Big kick out. Mr. America hooking up. He's hooking up. Check those ropes. And then all of a sudden, a burst of energy. Hopping around like, I don't know, a caged animal, I guess. Big old missed DDT. Russian's head comes all the way out. Look at the fans. Look at the fans. Look at the people trying to have their lunch. Not even looking at what's going on. I think some of those folks would just say, thank God this is over. Look, God bless. Live your dream. By all means, live your dream. But why subject these people? They're just trying to have a bite of lunch. I will say, though, however, Mr. America's gear is really well put together. He don't know how to tie his boots. I don't know if you noticed his boots were untied. But his gear looks good. So I'll give him that credit where it's due. Mr. America's gear was fantastic. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Episode 9 in the books. Thank you, Bob Keller, again for joining me today and giving us your wisdom and a great chat with him. Lots of stuff coming up. There is a big thing happening. We talked about it at the first of the show. If you missed that, check it out. This will be on replay, of course, on YouTube, and I think Rumble holds it for a while. So Rumble and YouTube will host the replays. But everything, the way to get to everything is the YouTube channel. If you missed the first 10 minutes, go back and check that out, where we talked about something big that's brewing, and I can't wait to be a part of it. And it will be a fun time for all. All right, it's going to do it for this one, episode 9 in the books. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll do it again next week, probably on next Friday. We'll come back to you with episode 10. That's all coming up soon. But in the meantime, have a great week, and I'll